Sarah Keeney from the Friends meeting, and it is our custom to write a minute or a little record of a person's life as a Quaker or a friend. So this is Dorie's memorial minute. Our beloved friend, Dorie Visa Bunting, was born on June 23rd, 1922, in Mexico City, to parents Ernest Visa and Dorothy Flint Findlay. Dorie died at age 101 on August 24th, 2023, in New Mexico. Dorie's parents were humanists with little interest in formal religion. But when Dorie was 14, her friend Margaret Wagner invited her to attend a Quaker meeting. The simplicity, openness, and emphasis on individual conscience appealed to her, and she became a lifelong friend for over 80 years. On the family's return from Mexico, they lived in Ohio and then Baltimore, Maryland. Dorie received a classical high school education at Bryn Mawr Girls' School. At age 15, in 1938, Dorie stayed with a family in Berlin to improve her German. The family would shop in forbidden Jewish stores and sit on yellow benches designated for the Jews. And these small acts of resistance influenced Dorie's future. She witnessed Hitler speaking at a mass rally, and there she learned the importance of standing up early on. At Oberlin College, she majored in art history and languages. She sang classical pieces in chorus, and in New Mexico, she enjoyed regularly attending concerts by Música Antigua. In later life, she sang with the Highland Harmonizers and the Highland Hightoners at the Highland Senior Center, and with the Raging Grannies at many protests. After graduating from college in 1944, Dorie volunteered for post-war relief and reconstruction work with the American Friends Service Committee in Italy and Germany for nearly 3 years. There she met Bainbridge Bunting, a conscientious objector and another volunteer. They were married in August 1948 at her parents' summer home. The Buntings moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Bain became a well-known professor of architecture history at the University of New Mexico. They purchased a one-room adobe on Guadalupe Trail, which grew to be a large home and meeting place built by Bain, with neighbors and friends who made many of their own adobes. They raised 3 children, Emily, Meredith, and Findlay. The Sala Grande of the house became a frequent site for parties, concerts, and local peace organizing activities. Dorie and Bain were among the founding members of the Albuquerque Friends meeting in 1949, bringing an awareness of injustice and for pacifism in all they did. The couple joined the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And with her strong social conscience, Dorie encouraged her children to watch the televised speeches of Dr. Martin Luther King. She worked with the United Nations Association and encouraged her children to trick or treat for UNICEF. Dorie's activism deepened with Ban the Bomb campaign. the anti-war Vietnam War movement in the 1960s, and she continued in the anti-nuclear movement into her late 80s. One of her earliest protest actions that brought her to public attention was standing with anti-war signs outside the entrance gates to Sandia National Laboratories, which develops weapons of war. And there's someone here who continues that vigil to this day. Dorie protested in direct actions against atomic bomb testing in Nevada and against storage of nuclear waste in New Mexico. In 1983, Dorie co-founded the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice. She helped found the local chapter of Amnesty International. She was a founding member of CANT, Citizens Against Nuclear Threat, in 1975, and also worked with Citizens Against Radioactive Dumping, or CARD, founded by Jenna Greenwald. As a quiet, committed activist, Dorie became a community legend. Her Quaker ways informed her social justice actions. Often, decisions were made through a general consensus process with respect for all views. In local social activist meetings, sometimes she would look like she was asleep with her eyes closed, but she was listening deeply to all that was being said. This is a posture familiar to friends. At the end, she would make a comment that honored everyone, and they could see a path forward. In a statement in the 1991 War Resisters League calendar, she said, "My experiences of being in Germany as an often reluctant activist have taught me that in taking action, however small, one acquires strength and grows toward the life of peace and love." A major motivational factor in Dorie's life was her inspiration from the White Rose Resistance in Germany, in which young university students distributed leaflets as part of the anti-fascist movement protesting Nazism, ending in their execution or imprisonment. And we have a little bit more. I'm going to turn it over to Carol Merrill.
In the Albuquerque monthly meeting, Quakers, Dorie fulfilled many joyful duties over the decades. Among her many services, she was presiding clerk, 1965, Peace and Social Concerns clerk, 1978-1991, Ministry and Oversight, 1980-1981, Assisted Quarterly Meeting, 1980, Children's Education Committee, 1993, Naming Committee, 1993, Nominating Committee, 1993 to 1999, Albuquerque Ecumenical Conference, 1995 to 1996, Intermountain Yearly Meeting Suffering, 1996, National War Tax Resisters, 1996, Hospitality, 1999 to 2007, Building and Grounds, 2007. Dorie. One act of dramatic civil disobedience was when she joined a group of protesters to stop the first truck carrying radioactive nuclear waste, to wit, waste isolation pilot project. In the deep dark, along a remote highway, they managed to stall the truck for about a half hour with a broken down car in the middle of the road. Another memorable time was when she was sitting with other protesters in Senator Bingaman's office, waiting to have a word with him when police began carrying out the activists. One policeman hesitated in front of Dorie's dignity. Dorie rose to her full, very tall height, and they looked at each other. He held out his hand, and she took it. They walked out of the office arm in arm for her to be arrested. At her 80th birthday party, Dorie was handed the gift of a get-out-of-jail-free card, prepaid bail bond, because she was likely to be arrested repeatedly for good causes. Dorie was overheard saying, quote, "Imagine what our world would be like if we did not educate our fine young men for war." With the Friends model, she worked for peace and justice in many arenas. She was a good model and leader and showed true personal care for whoever she was working with. Her style was joyful and fun amidst their serious projects. Fundraisers, dances, and meetings always included good food. Dorie was well known for her appreciation for potlucks, especially her appetite for sweet desserts. Dorie's daughter Meredith returned from her missionary work in Africa in 2007 to care for her mother Dorie in her last years. Faithful to her Quaker ways of simplicity, Dorie was buried one day after her death in a simple, unvarnished pine casket with rope handles at the San Jose de Arvijo Cemetery, 2957 Arenal Road, Southwest in Albuquerque. One attender spoke loudly, "Here lies the most important woman in New Mexico." As old friends carried the casket to the grave, many sang, "We shall overcome. 'Tis a gift to be simple." And the chorus, "Ain't gonna study war no more." Dorie is survived by two children, Meredith Bunting and Finley Bunting, along with three grandchildren, Camila and Feliciana Puig, Walter Bunting, and four great-grandchildren. Her daughter Emily and her husband in Cambridge predeceased her. Her family is grateful for the loving care she received at Casa de Paz. Meredith and Finley slept by their mother's bed for 2 nights at the end. A memorial service is planned here at the Hispanic Cultural Center. Dorie. Friend Dorie Bunting is a role model without equal and an essential inspiration for thousands of New Mexicans during the 20th and 21st centuries. Her influence continues in the brick and mortar of Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice and in the hearts and minds of those blessed by her memory, her life, in her gentle, strong, Quaker way. Thank you, Dorie.
Can you hear me all right? I was very tangential in Dorie's life, but we had some experiences protesting. And is the sound all right? And I just wanted to just comment that it was not uncostly sometimes for her, because I know in her 80s, we were standing on the detention porch, and we had been in a tax day demonstration over military funds and profiteers, and it turned out to be the coldest day I can remember in New Mexico, and yet it was spring, tax day, so we didn't expect this. We had met early in the morning, and we didn't have any sweaters or jackets or anything of that kind. And a few of us were arrested, and so they took us to this detention center and handcuffed us to the railing in the wind. It was a bitter, bitter wind, and she stood there uncomplaining in her 80s and withstood all of that. And there were indignities, further indignities inside the hall. And then I'm not sure if this was the same event, but I remember sitting in a very small holding space, like about the size of an elevator, with numerous other protesters and Dorie. And we didn't have room to all sit down at the same time, and we had to spend the night there. So we took turns standing and sitting, and you can imagine what kind of hamburgers they brought us. And so I just wanted to comment, it isn't always just easy for people.
Hello, my name is Roberto Royal. I came down from Santa Fe to join you all in remembering Dorie. I'll try not to be too long, but I've been working with Dorie for over 50 years in the movement for social justice. I remember first meeting her in the early 70s when we were protesting the U.S. war in Vietnam. I remember a march in March of 1970 when 3,000 of us marched out central against the U.S. war in Vietnam, and we occupied the Student Union building at that time, that day, and the National Guard came on campus and bayoneted 11 people. Dorie was in that protest, that march. I remember working with Dorie with the Albuquerque Boycott Committee in the early 70s. We were supporting the United Farm Workers of America in the boycott against grapes. When the farm workers won their struggle, and after their strikes against grapes, they won in 1976. And I remember on the picket lines, we used to go picket Smiths all the time, getting support for the great boycott. Dorie was joining us a lot there. We were doing it every week. And when Farm Workers won in 76, we picked up the Coors boycott because of the fascist Coors brothers. So we boycotted Coors, and we were at Smiths again picketing, and Dorie would join us there as well. I remember working with the Vince Amos Brigade in the 70s and 80s, sending people to Cuba in support of the Cuban Revolution. And I remember Bainbridge and Dorie would offer their home to us to do fundraisers for the brigade and many other organizations over the years. They were very, very supportive of our work for peace and justice. And when we formed the Southwest Organizing Project in 1980, Dorie soon became a member of the Southwest Organizing Project and joined us in a lot of our struggles. We were involved in social justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and peace issues. I remember going down to WHIP and joining those protests down there. And just so many memories of Dorie on picket lines and marches, meetings, tons of meetings at the Peace Center, all over the place. And she's been a great inspiration to me. And I was very honored to be able to see Dorie a few months before she passed. We contacted Meredith, and we were so grateful that you helped us to go see her when she was at Casa de Paz. For me, it was very warming to see her, because I hadn't seen her for a few years. And she's going to be greatly missed. And she inspires me, because now we're in Santa Fe, we're continuing to struggle for nuclear disarmament, where we are picketing every single Friday. And some of my friends there have been doing that for 22 years, every single Friday, picketing on Fridays at noon. So if you want to find me, I'll be at the corners of Guadalupe and Alameda Street, near the land office, Los Alamos National Lab's office, and we're there every Friday picketing. So come join us anytime. And thank you very much, Dorie. We love you. We miss you very much. Thank you.
I'm a member of the Friends meeting, and that is I was for many years, and that's how I got to know Dorie. My name is Karen again. Dorie just took me under her wing. She was motherly and a mentor. And one time I was looking for a job, and I don't think she wrote me a letter. Maybe she did. She wrote me a little letter saying, I encourage you to follow your, journey. And that meant a lot to me, because I don't have family here. And then every Christmas, we'd get together and we would make the German cookie. Meredith helped me. Springerly, yeah. And I don't know if you know about that, but it's quite a process. And what you end up with cookies like this, with pictures, with indents of angels and special Christmas nuts. And all kinds of Christmassy things. And you have to let them dry out for a while, like maybe, I don't know, a month or two. They're hard. They're like dunking cookies. So, and she had her own set of molds. Yeah, she must have had it from her parents. And so, yeah, one year Meredith was living there. Meredith helped us, and it was fun, and it was a special memory thing. And I can't really say how much she means to me and meant to me. But I'm sure you said so.
We apparently have a cordless mic now, so if you wish to speak, you'll raise your hand, I'll bring it to you. And folks outdoors, maybe stand in the doorway so we can see you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia Lashley. Some of you may know me from years ago. My memories of Dorie are soft and gushy. Her sweet smile. My husband Walter and myself, we used to attend Quaker meeting, and we never joined any religious place formally, but Quaker meeting here in Albuquerque was our sort of home base. And there I met Dorie. I also taught at the preschool co-op many years ago, where I met Emily, who was a dear friend for many years until she passed. And I met Dorie's grandchildren. What a gift. My memories of Dorie that I just wanted to share today were when I would attend the women's Quaker weekends. We would go up to the different campsites and we would stay there for the weekend and just get to know each other. Dorie was quiet and we would sit together. And when I went on the road to get my degrees, she would always send me a little note and say, "When are you coming home?" And it was with great sadness. For a little while there, I didn't get a note. We lived in Boston, Chicago, New York, knowing we would come back home. And I didn't hear from her for a little while, and I knew something was wrong when I came to move other people into our house to rent. Emily had flagged me ahead of time that Dorie had dementia. And it was a very sad moment in my life, but I wanted to connect with Dorie, and we had lunch with Emily and with Dorie. And I went over to her and I said, "Dorie, I'm back and we're coming home." And she kind of looked at me and she said, "I don't know who you are." And she smiled that sweet smile you saw in those pictures, and she said, "I think that would be very nice." And so for those of you who knew her more than me, I just want to say I'm so grateful. She was an important place in my heart, in my life, and I feel really blessed that I get to know her grandchildren and then meet her great-grandchildren. Thank you.
My name is Wendy Abramo, and Dorie was Mama Dorie for me. Emily was my best friend. I live now in Spain, and we came just in time for this. And last night, we couldn't sleep. My husband wrote a poem, and I'd asked if I could read it for him. Path is the name of a friend, clever, mannered, sensitive, unassuming. P-A-I-X, okay, nothing, is the name of a time of joy and dance, music and laughter, the name of a time of boundless energy, and an art historian driving a young couple to school and work. The old man is dead, he said. Yes, it was Bain who gave my Yemi the morning news. The old man was Franco, and I was more surprised and relieved to find out that a dried-up dictator might have found his peace in a cold bed, comforted by the grip of a mummified hand. Oh well. Pasi, salam, shalom, mean a piece of certain solemnity, ritual and humility, and respect when it's due. I'm sure there's a word for peace in every language. Moldovan, Greek, Farsi, Quechua, Kalo, and even North Korean. Sudanese, Arabic, and Russian. I don't know all of the words, but I know that mountains, rivers, trees, deserts, clouds, cities, ruins, all the creatures on earth and air, and all at the bottom of the sea have their equivalents. All words, and in them, with all of them, around them, throughout them, quietly but firmly, so steadily, throbs a friend's name, Dorie.
I'm Mary Bradley. I know Dorie. I did know Dorie since 1970. And there are two things that haven't been mentioned. I appreciate everything everyone else has said.
about Dorie and their appreciation of her, but no one has mentioned what a great cook she was. And I have 3 or 4 recipes that I will cherish forever and that I make regularly that came from Dorie. And the second thing, even more importantly, is that the only time I visited Dorie that we didn't laugh together was 2 days before she died. And I went to visit her at Casa de Paz. Meredith was there, and it was not a laughing time. But every other time I would spend the night with her and Benin at their house, or I would spend the night with Meredith and Dorie on Smith Street or on Jesus Street, and I would visit her at Casa de Paz, and we always laughed. There was always something that tickled her funny bone. And I think it's important to remember that with all the seriousness with which she lived her life, she never failed to appreciate the joy of humor.
Right there. Hi, I'm Hildegard Adams, and I met Dorie at the Peace and Justice Center way back in the 1990s. And I'm so glad you said that about laughing. Back in the day, before we in the Peace community owned the building, which we later had purchased from the Baha'is, it used to be the Baha'i Center, we were renters across the street in a small place. And I have joined the Amnesty group, was doing a lot of work with them, and at one point Dorie asked me to join the coordinating council. And speaking of laughing, so I did join the coordinating council, and Robin was there, and Janet was there, and some other elders who unfortunately are no longer with us. But I would like to say back in those days, it was easy. We laughed a lot. We got together, we did a little bit of business, we always had a potluck, great food, and we laughed, and then we went home. And that was it. And it worked by hook or by crook. You know, the Peace Center has never been rich. After we bought the building, we were really on the roll, and probably all of you know that the Peace Center has fallen on hard times, and now it's quite a struggle to get things back on track. But we are, thanks to a lot of hardworking activists. So I have so many fond memories of being at the Peace Center with Dorie and all the different things that we did, too numerous to mention, but we did laugh a lot.
I'm Sally Alice Thompson, and my first memory of Dorie was a silent march up Ridgecrest Street to disabuse people of the imperial propaganda about the Vietnamese War, which I was buying, and her place in objecting to that and showing the misinformation that was being passed out by the government was very important to me, and it was very revealing to me. And so I credit her with my change from being sold on the propaganda and looking at the facts about what's going on in the world. And I will always remember our first Peace Center was her home in the North Valley, and we had many, many potlucks and many gatherings there, and that was the beginning of the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice.
Okay, I'm Teresa Rodolfo, and I actually met Dorie in part of her life. And it was that smile that would get to you, I think. You know, I attend Valley Gospel Tabernacle, and she would go with Meredith, and she always had this beautiful smile, no matter what was going on. But the other thing I remember is her being such a strong woman, never wanting to be pampered or helped. You know, she would just make sure she could get up by herself and walk through the church without help. And we would try to guide her, thinking, well, you know, she can't make it, but she always did. She just surprised us. And so it was a pleasure to know her and to get to know her more as the time went by. Meredith, I have to give you a lot of credit because you were a great, great daughter to her. And you made her very happy.
Yes, Dorie liked to smile and laugh. That's a clear theme in here, and I witnessed that myself. I'm Chris Fiza. I'm Dorie's nephew. As Sarah mentioned, Dorie with the Fiza. I'm here with the Fiza clan, and I wanted to ask if there's anybody in here who knew Dorie before she married Bainbridge Bunting. Anybody? Well, if not, it makes me the longest person who's ever known Dorie. Hallelujah. And I'll just tell you it's not a story really, it's just an episode that I recall. I guess I was about 4 years old when Dorie married Bain. And as mentioned, her parents had a summer home on beautiful Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, which is where they had the wedding. Now, for the guests to get to the wedding, they had to be ferried in this little motorboat we had with a 3-horsepower motor on it. It took quite a while. Anyway, the boat came around the bend, loaded with people, and pulled up to the dock, and they were all dressed up in their finest wedding regalia, when the first person obviously was not a boat person, and they did not trim the boat, and instead landed in the lake. And this gets back to Dorie because we all had a good long laugh about that after the wedding went on.
Does that work? Okay. I got to know Dorie a little, not a lot, but she was my neighbor and when I was a kid, and my mom, Mimi, was one of her contemporary fellow activist people, and we would be taken to Dorie and Bain's house, the only people I ever knew who had an actual ballroom. I don't know if anybody else called it that, but that's sure what it was to me. And I ended up spending some really fun times laying under the tables in the ballroom during the fundraisers. A lot of fundraisers. And it was just kind of a cool thing to be a kid under the tables in the ballroom, watching the movers and shakers of peace in Albuquerque doing their thing.
I am Margaret Bell. I know about the ballroom because I taught exercise in the ballroom to Dorie and some other women from the North Valley. And the ballroom had a sprung-wood floor, which was magnificent for aerobic dance, which we ladies did. And it also had a bank vault door. So we would come in, we would park in the yard and come in and have our little exercise class. And one day there were skunks under the sprung-wood floor, so it was quite an adventure. But we had a grand time, and I taught her probably 15 years. Meredith, do you remember how long? About that?
I'm getting my steps in.
Dorie loved music. And Finn had just told me about an hour ago that one of her favorite events at Christmas time was singing with us at the singing sessions that my wife and daughters put on. I'm Jim Dudley, and I really appreciate her love of music and love of our family. She was our daughter's Albuquerque grandmother.
My name is Nancy Rice. I came to Albuquerque in 1996, and Dorie was one of the big reasons that I joined the Quaker meeting, because I wanted to be with people who were working for peace and justice. I figured if she was there, there'd probably be other people there that would be of a like mind. So that was big. But what really, really impressed me about Dorie was when we had potlucks, her plate would be absolutely a mountain. I mean, I couldn't believe it, and she actually put it all away.
I came to know Dorie through Friends Meeting when I moved to New Mexico from Montana and then from Gallup to Albuquerque. And when we used to be able to use the kitchen downstairs because all of our legs worked a little better, we would wash up after our potlucks. And of course, Dorie loved those potlucks. And I remember Dorie getting very irritated if we were running water too long in rinsing the dishes, and she would say, "You're wasting water in the desert." And now in my house, where it takes the hot water so blasted long to get to the kitchen sink, every time I'm running the water for a while, I feel like, Dorie, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be running it this long. I know it's in the desert, but I will. Dorie will be watching me and uses of water for the rest of my days.
I met Dorie at a white thing. My name is Enrique Ramirez, and I was very impressed with that woman. I'm so glad that I got to meet her, and I love her. But the first thing that she said when we were on the table at the Whiteley Smith banquet, we passed the bread, and he said, "No, thank you.
I don't want to spoil my appetite. And it was a great joy to have her. I love to see her eat. My mother had just passed away and it was hard for her to eat. So when I saw Dorie and the way she enjoyed her food makes me so happy. I'm so glad that I got to meet this wonderful lady. And I'm so glad to hear all about her accomplishments in this world. She was really an amazing person. I thank God for meeting her.
Hi, my name is Silvana Seidel. A lot of you may know my mother, Robin Seidel. So we lived with Dorie from the time I was 9 until I think I was 12. We were sort of trying to get away from my father and get to an area of town where he couldn't bother us, and so she just opened her home to us. And this was also after I had just lost my grandmother, and so she sort of filled that role in my life. And those of you who know me know about my baking, and there were a couple of birthday cakes for Dorie's son last night that I made, and all of that comes from Dorie, because I remember being in the kitchen with her on Guadalupe Trail, baking bread, and me with my skinny little arms trying to knead the bread as well as she could, because she was always so strong. And her teaching me how to roll out pie crust and bake pies from scratch. And now I consider myself kind of the Albuquerque queen of pies. And it's all from Dorie. Yes, she was this amazing force of nature for peace in the world and for justice, but she was so much more than that. She was just inspiring on a personal level for me, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have this great passion for baking in my life. And I also wanted to let everybody know that she came to sometimes multiple performances of every single school play or ballet recital I was in from the time I was like 8 all the way through high school. She was always there, no matter how busy she was and how many meetings she had to go to. She was just there for me. And she'll be missed.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson, and I met Dorie. I think we all in our lives know that there are moments and people who probably are important to us, and Dorie was one of those people that sort of set my career or my life in a direction I wasn't prepared for. There was anti-war demonstrations taking place here in Albuquerque. It was about 1971 or something like that. I can't remember the year, but there was just many of them. And I was out there in the streets just walking, and I had returned from Vietnam sometime before that. And it was sort of all confusing at that time, and I was learning what was going on. And somehow this Dorie came up to me and started talking in the way that she does, in a very calm kind of way. And she had this slideshow about the air war in Vietnam and the horrors of what was being done. And I had been a part of that. And I didn't know what to do with the knowledge that was in my head and the experience. And she said, well, I've got this slideshow put together by NARMAC, Quaker group, that explains what's going on. And she says, why don't you come and show this slideshow and tell us about it? And well, that started a whole, she arranged, I don't know, 5 or 6 other talks and slideshow presentations that I gave around the town to various peace groups and now the Peace Center. But the point of it was that her, in her way, found a way to give me to voice and act on in a way that was educational and reasonable to other people what was going on, and added to that. And so every time I passed by that corner over there, Yale and Central, when there's a McDonald's there now in the corner, I think of Dorie. I mean, I really do. And so she was a real inspiration in my life in a direction that I had not planned on. And you got to know her and the potlucks. Oh my gosh! From there on, it was potlucks and meetings and if I had never met her, I would have not gone in the direction I did. So I just want to say, Dorie Bunting, presente. Thank you.
One memory I had of my mom was she was, I'd come home, I'd be gone a long time, and she was always going to meetings, always going to meetings, always going to meetings, and said, I'm not involved in that group, but I just go to support them. I need to be there to support them. Okay, just coming and going. That was like in the 80s, just coming and going all the time. And I remember her one time, she was at the dining room table and she was crying. I said, what's the matter? And she was reading. And I worked in Africa for many years, but I can't remember the name of that country that's down by Namibia and South. It's not in South Africa. What's that one? Angola. And she was crying about Angola. I said, what's the matter, And she said, well, we're doing things in Angola. I said, Mom, everything in the world that goes wrong isn't the fault of the United States. We don't have that big of a reach that everything that goes wrong is from the United States, But, I said, there are other influences too in the world. But just the fact that she was so moved, she had a tender heart. And everything that was going on in the world, where someone was hurting, whether it be a prisoner, a conscience, or whatever, she would take it to heart, And when I got home to stay with her, she would get these letters and give a little bit of money here, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money here. She would get letters, appeals, from everywhere. And I had to write a bunch of letters saying, she can't give to you anymore. I mean, we get 30 letters in the mail because she was giving a little bit to everybody, And I said, Ma, we can't do that. We just get too much mail that way. But she just had such a tender heart, for anybody that was suffering or injustice in the world.
Maybe I can close this portion of our gathering by talking about Dorie's generosity and what she has meant in my life and my family's life. And we moved to Albuquerque. Oh, is this mic off? Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm not good at mics. We moved to Albuquerque in the early 80s, having come from Argentina and gone through the dirty wars, and so we were very aware of human rights issues and had joined Amnesty International. We moved here because Marge got a scholarship to study at UNM, and we had one name, Dorie Bunting, Amnesty International Group 101. So we called her up as soon as we arrived, and she invited us to her house and dinner, whatever. And 6 or 8 months later, Bain died. And by that time, she had invited me to the Peace Conversion Project. We had gotten to know her quite well.
So for those outside, we're going to have some music that couldn't hear and sing some songs that Dorie loved.
And the words are in your programs. And I think there are some other song leaders who might just come up here and help lead the song. So if you're one of those, please come up. And we'd love to have you here with us.
Hello. Hi. My name is Jim Jackson, and my partner Jim Dudley here. We're both quite honored to play a small role in this celebration of Dorie's life. And as Sarah has said, this is an opportunity for all of you to participate as well. So it's not a concert, it's a sing-along. So join in as we go. We're beginning with a song of peace. This is to the tune of Finlandia that you'll all recognize. So feel free to sing along, and we do have a few other volunteers who will help you sing out. So Jim, whenever you're ready. Good work. And now we've finished our service today with Oh, What a Beautiful Morning, which I think was one in her later years her favorite song. So, and we've changed a few of the pronouns in it. So. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. The green is as high as an elephant's eye, and it looks like it's climbing clear up to the sky. All the sounds of the earth are
everybody for the potluck and conversation to please sign the guest book. Is that what you're? Okay, and we'll put the slides up again so that people can watch them as they chat here in the room before they leave. Thank you, everybody.